Good morning. Bet you weren't expecting to see me on a Saturday, right? Well, when I said in the first edition of the morning drive that I work an erratic schedule, I wasn't kidding. You see, I work in retail, and when you work in retail, there's no such thing as a Monday through Friday work week. We have the fun and luxury, if you want to call it that, of working Saturdays and Sundays, and we typically get a lot of weekdays off. And you generally in retail, the better off of an employee you are, or the better an employee you are, the more often you're going to be working when the store is busy, which is nights and weekends. So, with that said, that's kind of interesting. What do we got here? We got something going on. Oh, we got a trailer truck in the ditch. Huh. And a car on its side. Wonder how that happened. Sorry I couldn't give that to you. That was a pretty cool looking little scene right there. If it was a weekday morning, that would have created a traffic backup because everybody's got to see what's going on. Anyway, back to the morning drive. I don't remember what I was saying. So anyway, because I work in the retail industry, I will be doing these things generally on Saturdays and Sundays as well as weekdays. The only time I won't be doing a morning drive in the car guys in front of me, a couple of trucks mad at each other in front of me here. The only time I won't be doing the morning drive in the car is when I'm off. So, and my next day off right now scheduled is tomorrow, which will be Sunday. So anyway, let's talk hockey. Last night in the NHL there were 3 games. It's a pretty light schedule, as Fridays generally are, and the first game was kind of surprising to me. That was the Blackhawks and the Predators. Not so much surprised at the outcome. Predators won 3-2, by the way. But the fact that Chicago is now 0-2 on the season. Granted, they've played 2 tough Central Division opponents, and it just goes to show what I've been saying on our podcast, that the Central Division is easily the toughest division in the NHL right now, because there's so many good teams. You've got Chicago, you've got Nashville, you've got St. Louis. I mean, the list goes on and on. Dallas is good. So that was the first game, and I actually didn't see any of the 3 games last night because I was watching my alma mater, the University of Maine, but I'll get to that. And the other reason I wasn't watching any games last night was because I had to get our audio podcast, the Hockey Nuts podcast, I had to get the editing on that finished and get that thing uploaded. So it's kind of hard to edit a podcast and pay attention to hockey games at the same time. Now I may have them on the TV in my office, but generally the sound is way down and I'm not even paying attention to it. So might as well say I wasn't even watching. But anyway, the second game last night was part 2 of the Oilers versus Flames. This game was in Calgary this time, and Edmonton actually won again, 5-3. And a lot of the NHL's, reporters, so-called experts, have been saying that Calgary is a borderline playoff team. And if that's the case, then that bodes pretty well for Edmonton to have beat them twice in a row to start off the season. And if Edmonton is not a playoff team, then as a lot of the, again, experts are saying, then what do we got going on here? Traffic jam. Awesome. So again, if Edmonton is not a playoff team, as a lot of the experts are saying, then they sure don't look like it, because they have jumped out to a 2-0 start, and they've scored 12 goals in the process. Now, of course, they've let in 7, in 2 games, which isn't too good in that sense. But scoring 12 goals in the first 2 games, pretty good start for a hockey team. I would take it if I was a fan. Now, in the third game last night was the Flyers and the Kings. The Flyers made the trip out to the West Coast to play LA. And LA, I saw in the highlights, LA was having another celebration night. And it was kind of weird because a couple nights ago, Edmonton had their celebration of the opening of their building. And as I mentioned in a past podcast, they had Gretzky and they had Messier, 2 of the most famous captains that they've ever had, was back, and they skated around the ice. Well, guess who showed up in LA last night for the celebrations that they had? And I'm not even certain what the celebration was for in LA, if it was just simply their home opener or whatnot. Oh God, this thing's long. Right lane's closed, merge left. I'm looking ahead like half a mile, or actually almost a mile, and it's nothing but a parking lot. Alright, well. So anyway, the Flyers went into LA and beat them 4-2 last night. Now, the other game that I was actually watching and I paid attention to was my alma mater, the University of Maine men's hockey team, was playing Quinnipiac University last night, who's currently ranked either number 2 or number 3, depending on which poll you look at. So I made it a point to watch that game since Quinnipiac is so highly ranked nationally, and it was a good game. Maine fell behind 2-0 in the game after a scoreless first period, and they clawed back. They were behind 2-0 and 3-1 at one point. Kind of reminded me a lot of the Bruins game the other night. And then they fought back to tie the game with about 6 minutes left in the period, and there was no other scoring in the third period. And then in overtime, UMaine came down and scored the game winner against Quinnipiac. So everybody in Black Bear Nation is extremely excited. The team is off to a 3-0 start now after 2 wins at home versus RPI and another win at home versus Quinnipiac. The Black Bears are now 3-0, and I imagine we'll get some national attention this week after having that win against Quinnipiac. Granted, they play Quinnipiac again tonight, and they could very well split the series, but getting at least one win against a powerhouse team like them is a pretty good thing. So that is pretty much it as far as headlines around the world of hockey, at least as far as what I've got on the top of my mind. Tonight, I'm excited to get home because there are 13 games in the NHL. That means 26 of the 30 teams are in action tonight. As it is the first Saturday night in we having to go all the way left? Anyway, this traffic jam's really distracting. So yeah, as it's the first Saturday night of play in the regular season, so it's going to be good to see that we get back to it real hard tonight. So any teams that haven't played yet will or should have their first games tonight. And usually on Saturdays, or at least sometimes on Saturdays, are matinee games. So none of the games tonight are matinees. So I won't miss a minute of action. I'll be able to go home, get my NHL.tv up, which I can put 4 games up on my computer screen, plus a 5th game on my monitor. My family thinks I'm crazy because I'm watching 5 games at one time, but I think it's great because I can just jump from game to game. I wish the NHL had a channel similar to what the NFL does, and that they do jump from game to game. But I can understand why it would be very difficult for them to pull off a channel like that. Right 3 lanes close. Oh, I see. Well, I can work my way further down anyway. So we're down to 1 lane on I-40 on a Saturday morning. Isn't that fantastic? And we're still a mile out. All right, well, I will go ahead and end it here then. I don't really have anything else to say. I've got to call my store now and let them know that I'm going to be late because of this mess. So I will call it a day. Oh, I should have cut in right there. There was plenty of room. Get around this corner. Okay. Well, anyway. So tomorrow's show will be probably from my office in my house. And until then, and there'll be plenty to talk about for sure because it's Sunday morning. Until then, I will see you later.